Welcome. My name is Lawrence Kabinga, and I'm here to take you through supply chain management. For this lesson, we are going to look at the basic definitions, concept, and what it entails when we talk about supply chain management. Welcome and enjoy the lesson. We are going to start with the basic definition. Here we are going to define what is a supply chain. A supply chain management, this refers to a set of synchronized decisions and activities utilized to efficiently integrate suppliers, manufacturers, warehouses, transporters, retailers, and customers so that the right product or service is distributed at the right quantities to the right location and at the right time in order to minimize system-wide costs while satisfying customer level requirement. That's how we define a supply chain. Note that we say a supply chain is a set of synchronized decisions and activities. This is a very important element of this definition. The word synchronized. That word means, remember, in a supply chain, this is a process. This is a circular process. We can also call it a circle. And this process involves several activities and several decisions. What happens, each step, each process, each activity, the success of each activity depends on the success or failure of the previous activity. And our current activity, the success of the current activity determines the success of the next preceding activity. That is the meaning of the word synchronized. The activities are related to each other and they influence each other's success or failure. We can equate this to the normal relay marathon. For those who do athletics, the relay sport, where we pass on the baton from one person to the next. If the person behind you, if your team member is number one, you will maintain that trend as number one. If your team member is the last, you will be the last in the relay champion. The success or failure of your member in that relay sport, the person who will give you the baton so that you can run and give the baton to the next person, the success or failure of that person behind you determines your success. That's why we say these activities are related to each other. The activities are synchronized from one step to the other. And this is a circular process. We can equate it into a circle, the circular process. So, in short, a supply chain is those activities involved from sourcing raw materials up to they arrive to the organization, up to the point they arrive into organization's warehouse, then we do manufacturing, and then we do distribution, final distribution on the ground to our respective customers. That's what we call a supply chain. Let us look at the next concept. The following on your screen, you can see a few of the activities we find in a supply chain. These 8 steps, this is a summary of the major activities involved in a supply chain. You can see we have customer relationship management and customer service management. Remember, the purpose of any organization, the goal of any organization is to satisfy customers' needs and wants. So here we start with doing a market research on what our customers want. And that information is what will enable us to source for the right kind of raw materials. With that kind of information, we will be able to source for the best raw materials from the market, from our suppliers. This is also related to demand management. Remember, as organizations, we want to make sure that we match the supply capacity of the organization with the demand numbers on the ground from our customers. How many units of our item do our customers consume every week, every month, every year. For us to be successful, for us to make more profits, we should avoid a situation of where there is a shortage, a mismatch between demand and supply. So when we are buying the raw materials from the suppliers, we need to source for the right quantity. The emphasis here is the right quantity, so that we can end up with the right quantity of finished products to meet suppliers' demand requirements on the ground. This is also related to under fulfillment. When our customers ask for something, we might be running an online shop. Customers buy from us online. Our distribution agents order their orders from us. We should be able to fulfill their orders on time without delays. And we should make sure that what we deliver is of the right quality. That is how a supply chain enables us to meet our objectives as an organization. Next, we have manufacturing flow management. This is a situation where the supply chain management concept enables us as an organization to effectively match the manufacturing, production, or assembly requirements in our factories with the manufacturing facilities requirements. If the manufacturing manager wants an output of 50 tons of A items, this is what they should get. We should not have a situation where there's a shortage of materials, shortage of raw materials that will force the machines to be closed down. We should not close down our manufacturing activities because of lack of raw materials. And that will not be something good for our customers. This is what will eventually cause delays in delivering customer orders. Next, we have supplier relationship management. Supplier relationship management. This is the next thing. This is where we look at how to ensure a good relationship with our suppliers. As an organization, we must ensure that we have what we call long-term relationships with the right kind of suppliers. This is what will add value to organization. Long-term strategic partnership with suppliers. We should avoid situations of short-term win-lose relationships. The next part and the next element of the key supply chain processes is product development and commercialization. This is another key area where supply chain helps us a lot as an organization. When we get the right suppliers, when we use the supply chain concept, we will be able to develop the right kind of product by partnering with our suppliers. And when it comes to commercialization of that product, this will be a success for us as an organization. And lastly, we have returns management. Remember, we also call returns management reverse logistics. This is where we manage the backward flow of materials from customers to the organization. This may be worn out products. This can be returns products that have warranty, or this can be packaging materials for things like glass bottled sodas, glass beer bottles, or gas, cooking gas, cylinders. Supply chain management enables us an organization to conduct this process so effectively without failure. Thank you. Let us move to the next part. We have just defined what is a supply chain. Now let us look at what is procurement. This is another very important terminology when it comes to supply chain management. Let us look at the meaning of this word. Procurement refers to the acquisition of merchandise or services at the optimum possible total cost in the correct amount and quality. That's how we define the word procurement. This is the process organizations use to acquire raw materials, to acquire parts, spares, components. We always say at the right time, from the right place, at the right price, at the right quality, at the right quantity. This is a new and a very important concept in procurement, what we call the 5 R's of procurement. For organizations to be able to purchase materials that will enable the organization and the value and gain competitive advantage, we have what we call the 5 R's of procurement. Let us look at this in more detail in the next section as we define and look at the concept of procurement. Let us look at the next part. Now we are going to look at what we call the procurement process. Remember, we are looking at how organizations acquire raw materials, parts or components. Now let us look at what we call the procurement process. This is also called the procurement cycle. When you hear the word procurement process, procurement cycle, this refers to the process of procurement. And this has 11 steps as shown on your screen. The first process is what we call purchase planning. This is where the organization, through the procurement department, through the procurement officer, the procurement officer will first of all decide the buying needs of the organization. As a company, what are our needs? What do we want to buy for the organization? What do we want to buy for our company? That's what we call purchase planning. Let us determine our quantities. Are we doing conversion? Are we in manufacturing? What raw materials do we need? This is followed by the second step, and the third one, what we call standards determination and specification development. This is where we determine our purchase requirements in great detail. If we want raw materials A, which grade do we want, which type, which color? Here we also look at the dimensions, height, length, width, color, red, blue, green. We also look at material, metal, wood, lumber, plastic, glass, polythene. As a company, we want to avoid confusion. We want to ensure that what we buy is what we need. And so that we can avoid any confusion, as we communicate with our potential suppliers, we need to make sure that our purchasing requirements are in great detail and they have been specifically defined. That's what we call standards determination and specification development. This is the language we are going to communicate with our selected suppliers. The next part is where we do supplier search and selection. As an organization, we have the option of using the internet. Nowadays, we have the internet. This is the easiest way of getting potential sources of supplies. Potential suppliers, both locally and internationally, are all over the internet. We can use sites such as Alibaba, Amazon, eBay. There we will find all types of suppliers who can meet our needs. And the next step, as we identify potential suppliers, this is where we select the best supplier. Evaluation. We call this supplier evaluation. This is a form of a test where we evaluate the financial capacity, technical capacity of our suppliers. Remember, we want to work with the best in the industry. Remember, we must check on time and lead time. So we wanted to ensure that we choose the best of the best in the market. And the only way to do this is to evaluate them. Come up with a way of testing their capacity, take them through some formal interview. You can even visit the suppliers' warehouses to confirm they have the capacity to deliver for the organization. This is followed by value analysis and financing. Here we look for money to buy our raw materials from our financial partners, and then we do price negotiation with our suppliers, so that we can, remember we talk of the right price, so we want to buy materials of the right price, not necessarily the lowest price, the right price. This is followed by making the purchase. We buy the goods from the suppliers, we sign a contract with them, they deliver the products, we open the products, inspect the products, accept the product, then we pay the suppliers. Then the next step is where we manage the materials in our own warehouses. This is what we call inventory control and management. And you can watch my other videos. I've talked a lot about all the various inventory control techniques. And the last step is what we call disposal and other functions. This is where we get rid of materials we don't need in the warehouse. This may be breakages, spoiled items, obsolete items. And also in our warehouses, we also do other value-adding activities like packaging and health and safety. So that's what we call the procurement process or the procurement. Our third definition is what we call purchasing, the word purchasing. This is also very important as we discuss the concept of supply chain management. Purchasing refers to the process of acquiring goods, services, or works in return for a price. That's how we call purchasing. You can see it's all similar, all the same or similar to the word procurement. This is where the organization uses various methods to acquire materials, raw materials, parts, or components to support the organization's manufacturing, processing, or assembly activity. That's what we call purchasing. And this is where now we are going to discuss a very important concept, what we call the 6 R's of purchasing. We call this the 6 R's of purchasing. Let us look at each individually in the next section. We call this the 6 R's of purchasing. This is where, as an organization, we ensure that we buy materials of the right, what we call the right quality, the right quantity, at the right price, at the right time, from the right place. That's what we call the 6 R's of purchasing. This is where, as an organization, we ensure that we buy items. We can start with the first one, right time. This is where we buy materials at the right time without delays. The purpose here is to avoid delays. There's no room for delays. Remember, our customers will not be happy. We will not satisfy our customers if they find empty shelves when they come to buy our products. That's what we call right time, right place. This is where we look for the best suppliers in the market. As an organizations, we should go on the ground and look for the best suppliers in the market. This is what we call the right place. Choose the best supplier. Then we have the right quality. This means, as an organization, let us buy materials that will add value to our organization. Let us, in terms of quality, let us buy the right quality, the right standards. What is our standards? Remember, various materials have various grades and standards, so let us choose the best depending on our desired end product. What is our desired end product? Then let us choose that right material that will serve us as an organization. Then we have the right quantity. This is where we should buy materials of the right amounts. This is what we call quantity, the right amounts. Do we need 2 tons or 3 tons? Let us avoid any underbuying because it will affect our end product quantities. And this is what will cause now delay shortages. And customers will always go to our competitors. Nowadays we have a lot of competition. We cannot afford to let down our customers. Then lastly, we have what we call the right price. The right price, this refers to buying materials at the right price where we avoid overcharging. Let us not have exaggerated prices. This is a very common trend in public procurement in most developing countries, including Kenya. So let us buy raw materials at the right price. Remember, our emphasis is not the lowest price. No. Remember, sometimes cheap can be expensive. As an organization, who is our target end customer? The high-end customer, the middle class, or the lower end of the market? Of course, such products will be made by different kinds of raw materials. So if our target is the high-end class of the market, then our raw materials should be grade 1, grade A, at the right price, not the lowest price. The lowest price will give you the lowest quality in the market, the lowest grade, the lowest standards. And that might not help us if our target is not the lower end of the market. That's why we call it the right price. Remember that this price will also affect our final selling price. So if we buy at exaggerated costs, the price of our end products will also be exaggerated. And the customers will abandon our products and go to our competitors' products, which are well priced. So this is a very important aspect of purchasing. That's what we call the 6 R's of purchasing. Let us go to the next part. Next, we are going to define what is supply management. Supply management. Remember the first definition we looked at supply chain management. Now we want to look at what is supply management. We normally say this is the process responsible for the development and management of a firm's total internal and external supply system. This is where we take care of how we acquire raw materials from suppliers all the way to how we distribute our finished product to the customers. The purpose here is to satisfy our customers, and we need to manage the supply system in our organization. This involves the flow of materials from suppliers to organization where they are converted, and then now the flow of the finished product to the final customer through our various distribution channels. And for this to be successful, we have to observe the following steps. The following are the steps involved in a supply management. The first step in supply management, this is what we call early purchase involvement and early supplier involvement in product design. Remember, we looked at the process of procurement, and we said the first stage is what we call purchase planning. This is where we determine what we want as an organization, and then we develop the specifications and the standards. So now it is very important that as we develop our product specifications, remember how we defined specifications. These are our products, dimensions, material. What material shall we use to make our product? Metal, wood. What color shall we use? What will be the dimensions of those materials? Height, the length, the ingredients, the chemical makeup of the raw materials. We are advised that as we come up with that, let us involve our suppliers. Remember, our suppliers will advise us if our needs can be met. They also advise us if what we are looking for is commercially viable. Are we able to get these materials economically on the ground? Is this possible? Or will we end up with materials of the wrong quality? Sometimes as organizations, we can have what we call impractical, non-practical specifications. What we want in design form can be very good, but getting those raw materials in the market on the ground might be a challenge. So our suppliers will advise us on this. Is our requirements practically, can it be practically sourced from the ground, or it will be too expensive and this will affect our final price and ability to serve our customers. So that's why it's important to involve the suppliers when you are designing your product. Remember, we also need machines to convert the raw materials into the finished product. Our suppliers will also advise us if such machines, tools, or equipment are available in the market, or now we will need to adjust our designs. So that is a very important step in this stage. The next one is the use of cross-functional teams. We say heavy use of cross-functional teams. This is where, as an organization, we ensure that we work with all the departments in our company. As a company, we should ensure that we engage and make use of all departments in the organization. We need teamwork in a company for these activities to be a success. Then we have forming partnership and strategic alliances. This is another important step. We need to come up with special kinds of relationships, not only with our suppliers, but also with our distribution partners, so that we can ensure we deliver value to our customers. We can even form partnership arrangements with our suppliers, as well as distribution agents. The other step is where the company should continuously identify threats and opportunities. As a company, we should conduct a SWOT analysis of the supply system. As an organization, let us hire consultants who will advise us on the potential threats and opportunities in our supply chain. And this will enable us to identify our supply environment. Therefore, we will be able to respond well to changes and take advantage of changes in the market so that we can continue being competitive against our rivals in the market. Then we should also monitor continuous improvement. This is where we are encouraged to use ISO standards to improve the quality of our products, processes, and procedures. We should come up with a monitoring and evaluation tool for checking that quality standards are met in our organization. That is what we call monitoring of continuous improvement. And also, those are the key specific items related to supply management. Let us go to the next part, what we call stores management. Stores management refers to the activity of planning, organizing, and controlling the available materials in a warehouse, awaiting issue or transport to the customers. So here we are going to look at all the activities involved in a warehouse, our company's warehouse, our company's stores. We are going to look at the activities that add value to the store's function so that it can contribute to the overall good performance of the supply chain management. Let us look at some of the important activities involved in stores management in the next section. Stores department in any organization must add value to the supply chain so that the organization can be able to achieve its objective. And this can only be done when our stores department does their duties diligently. The first key activity of this department is what we call receiving of goods from suppliers. This is the main, very important key element of stores operations and stores management. The storekeeper should receive materials when they arrive When materials are delivered by our suppliers, we should receive them, open the package, and inspect to ensure that the package conforms to our quality standards and also quantity. We should physically count each item to ensure that we have received what we ordered. That's what we call receiving and inspection of incoming materials. Another key element of this activity is record keeping. Record keeping. This department should ensure that they keep accurate and updated records concerning various areas. Record keeping. Another key activity is security and protection of materials. The store should be well enforced to ensure that it prevents unauthorized entry from outsiders, what we call theft. We should also come up with various measures to ensure that we avoid internal theft, what we call pilferage. We should ensure that we have put in place various measures to ensure that our own employees do not steal from us. Another key activity of stores management is maintaining our materials, what we call health and safety of the store. This is where we protect our materials from the elements of the weather, excess sunlight, rainfall, bad weather, water and damp conditions, or fire, cases of fire. Another key activity of stores management is stock taking. Stock taking. This is another very important activity that adds value to an organization. Stock taking, this is where the storekeeper counts materials available on the floor of the warehouse to verify that what is on the floor of the house matches with our records. That's what we call stock taking. This is the physical verification of materials in the warehouse with our records. The purpose is to check and see if we have any discrepancies. Then we have another important element, stock control. Stock control. This is also very important. Another important element of stores management. This is where we balance between the organization's ability to supply and the ability to meet customers' demands without any shortage, as well as avoiding excess keeping of materials. That's what we call inventory control. We want to ensure that materials are always available to meet the customer orders. But that does not mean that we should keep excess materials. We need to strike a balance. We need to get the equilibrium between shortage and excess. The customer demands and organizations ability to supply. That's what we call stock control. And lastly, we have disposal of surplus. This is the last important element of stores management. This is where we get rid of obsolete and scrap items that are not adding value to the organization's operations. Next, we are going to define what is materials management. And remember, this is related to stores operations, stores management. This is where we plan, organize, and control all aspects of inventory, embracing procurement, warehousing, work in progress, and distribution. So materials management is a wider concept compared to stores management, and this involves all the way from procurement to warehousing to manufacturing, what we call work in progress, all the way to distribution. Let us look at activities, key activities involving materials management. Remember, we have said materials management is a wider term involving more than just stores management. And here we are going to look at all activities ranging from acquisition of materials, what we call purchasing management. Then we do inventory management in our warehouses. We safely keep the materials there. We do materials handling when they are being transported, loading or flooding. we manage the activity of manufacturing, what we call production, planning, scheduling, and control, all the way to traffic and transportation, where we look at route planning and scheduling for our distribution vehicles. This is where we have the finished product. We manage which vehicle will go on which route to distribute the final product. So you can see materials management is a wider terminology compared to stores management. For our next definition, we are going to look at the word logistics management. Logistics management. This is another key important definition in supply chain management. Logistics management refers to the process of planning, implementing, and controlling the efficient flow of goods and services from the point of origin to the point of consumption, including managing the information. That's what we call logistics management. This is a broader term that also involves transport. Remember, the word transport means the physical movement of goods from point A to point B. That's how we define the word transport. But now logistics is a broader term that also encompasses transport. And this is here we manage the flow of materials and information from the suppliers to when they arrive in the organization and to when we distribute the final product to the customer. And our emphasis here is information and transportation. That's what we call logistics management. The diagram on your screen, this diagram clearly illustrates the concept of logistics management. You can see from one end, we have the acquisition of raw materials and the flow of those materials plus information to the organization's factory store, to the production department, to the finished goods warehouses, now to our regional warehouses, and finally to our customers. That is the path that logistics enables and transports materials. Materials will be transported from one end to the other end. Also including reverse logistics. Remember how we defined reverse logistics. The same will also happen. The flow of materials from the customer back to the organization in case of warranty or in case of packaging materials. That's what we call the concept of logistics. You can see on the other hand, we have acquisition. On the other end, we have usage. Acquisition from suppliers and then usage by our customers. That's what we call the concept of logistics management. Come to the end of this lesson. As we wind up, we are going to look at what we call decision phases in a supply chain. This is the last item for this lesson, and here we are going to look at how decisions are made in an organization in terms of decisions affecting a supply chain. Who makes what decision, when it's involved at what level. We are going to handle this using several elements. Number one is time frame, and number two is authority, the level of authority. Who is in charge of making which decisions? In organizations, we have three levels of decision making. Number one is what we call supply chain strategy. Supply chain strategy. Number two is what we call supply chain planning. Then number three is what we call supply chain operation. They are arranged like that in a hierarchical order. That is the order of hierarchy of these decision-making phases or stages. Number one, supply chain strategy. Number two, supply chain planning. Then number three, supply chain operation. The first one is the most senior level of decision-making. And decisions made at this level involve the strategic plan of the organization in terms of supply chain activities. The people who make this decision are the top most senior employees in an organization, the CEO, the managers, and the directors. And the decisions they make will affect the organization for the next 5 years. And so, 5 years and more. This is what we call supply chain strategy. This is where the top people in a company, they come up with the organization's vision statement, mission statement, and objectives. That's what we call supply chain strategy. The next part, supply chain planning. This is done by our heads of department, and their decisions affect the organization for the next 1 to 2 years. 1 to 2 years. That's what we call supply chain planning. Now, this is a breakdown of the strategic plan developed at the first phase, supply chain strategy. This is a breakdown of that organizational strategy to fit the needs of individual departments. And then at the lower end, we have supply chain operation, which is the decisions made by the supervisors, the people in charge of the day-to-day running of the organization. The decisions made by these supervisors affect the organization on a daily basis, a weekly basis. And this is the work of the supervisor, who is at the lower end of the organization structure. You have seen how decisions are made in an organization from the people at the top of the organization structure, the CEO, who come up with the supply chain strategies, to the people at the middle of the organization, the heads of department, who make what we call supply chain planning decision, and then to the people at the bottom of the organization structure, who we call the supervisors, who make what we call supply chain operation decisions, decisions affecting the day-to-day running of the organization. So we use those three levels of decision making to come up with strategic plans for our supply chain management initiative in our organization. That marks the end of the lesson. Thank you for your time and effort to listen to this lesson. If you need further guidance, further lessons on the same subject, contact me. My phone number is there, and WhatsApp number, my email address, my social media account, my ResearchGate account, and my academia account. Contact me, and I will assist you to understand more on what is supply chain management. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more updates and for more notes. Thank you once again.